let's talk about something that should deeply concern anyone who cares about religious freedom and honest journalism. The BBC recently published an article questioning claims about Christians in Nigeria facing violent persecution. And here's the problem. This is a regrettable example of how the corporation fails to act as a neutral broadcaster when it comes to stories that matter to Christians. Let's be blunt, Christians in Nigeria are under serious threat. Open Doors UK reports that more Christians are killed for their faith in Nigeria than anywhere else in the world. Think about that for a moment. Nowhere else in the world. Their partner organizations testify to displaced Christian families living in makeshift camps, traumatized after attacks by militants. These aren't abstract statistics. These are real families who've lost everything. Release International confirms that Nigeria is tipping into a spiral of violence against Christian communities. And Barnabas Aid notes the crisis of displacement, loss of livelihoods, and churches destroyed in what they term part of an anti-Christian wave in the West African country. So when multiple credible organizations with boots on the ground are documenting this systematic violence, you'd expect a major news organization like the BBC to take these reports seriously, right? But that's not what happened. Instead, the BBC chose to frame the story around questioning whether the persecution is really happening at the scale being reported. It's a subtle but crucial shift. Rather than investigating and reporting on the documented violence, they've made the story about whether we should believe it's really that bad. This matters because the BBC isn't just any news outlet. It's a publicly funded broadcaster with enormous influence both in the UK and internationally. When the BBC downplays persecution, it affects public perception. It affects policy. It affects whether people in positions of power take action to help these suffering communities. The evidence is overwhelming. Christian communities in Nigeria are facing systematic violence. Families are being displaced, churches are being destroyed. People are being killed for their faith. These facts are documented by multiple independent aid organizations working directly in the affected regions. The question we need to ask is, why would the BBC choose to frame this story in a way that minimizes the suffering? Whatever the reason, it represents a failure of journalistic responsibility. Christians around the world need to pay attention to how their stories are being told or not told by major media organizations. When persecution is downplayed or dismissed, it doesn't just harm those suffering in the moment. It creates an environment where such persecution can continue unchecked because the international community isn't being properly informed. The Christians of Nigeria deserve better. They deserve accurate reporting. They deserve for their suffering to be acknowledged, not questioned. And they deserve for major news organizations to fulfill their duty to report the truth rather than shaping narratives to fit preferred storylines. The facts are clear. The documentation is extensive. The suffering is real.
This is a fast-changing story. We're covering breaking updates as they develop. Be sure to subscribe for the very latest.